All right, we got one. I'm here with Freda too. I don't want to feel left out. See?
What's this?
All right, thank you. There's Tony in New York City. There's Grand Central. Pretty cool. Next to it is the hotel where the Beatle thing's going on. See that? And then beyond that is the Chrysler Building. There goes Tony. Well, here we are, 50 years late. We're at the Ed Sullivan Show to see the Beatles. You see that? And that's what it is, October 10th. We're going to see her. Who is she? Her name is her name is good old Freda. Here we are, getting more video with Freda. She's here? She's right there. Autographing stuff for everybody but me.
In 2012.
That's Brianna.
There's Brianna after all these years. Here's me. I still look the same. I haven't changed. There's the Shuto gang. And I'm still here too, see? There's Freda. Then and now. Hey.
In the world of documentary filmmaking. So you're very fortunate tonight to have him here as we do this film, and he'll talk in just a second. I just want to acknowledge a couple of other people. The producers of the film. How about a nice, warm Catonsville welcome to Kathy McCabe and Jessica Watson.
Hey, what are you doing?
You did what they said. Tony, take the bow! Tony wrote a song for Freda that we'll hear at the end of the film. Isn't that great? So this is a family fun night. It's like the Beatles came to Catonsville. I mean, it really is. Isn't that cool?
It was a story that was held very close to the heart for 50 years, and it has spent the last 2 years kind of permeating the world. I'm very excited for you guys that you get to share that time with Freda after the film, and she can answer all your questions. So we hope you.
Life was a young man, the winter cruel. When a Popeye came inside, gathering winter cruel. I'm George Harrison. Nobody else has said anything yet about our secretary, Freda Kelly in Liverpool. So on behalf of us all, I'd just like to say a great big thank you. And praise it. Gentle kindness and the depth of the ocean. She traveled miles and miles, collecting all her smiles through the years of our devotion. peace and love. So raise your glass to a lady with class. Good old freedom. When you fell into her heart, she knew right from the start that they'd live inside forever. She did it all for love. She kept the whole world up on that little treasure. She started as a fan that grew to a friend. From love me till the end. So raise your glass to the Beatles' favorite last. Good old freedom. Now the story's told of a dedicated soul. Beatles' connection to the world. So raise your glass to a magical past. Good old freedom. Good old freedom.
I believe we've reached the point of our special event where we can welcome Freda Kelly. There she is. Let's hear it for the rest of the production team right now. Come on down, everybody. Ryan, Kathy, and Jesse, let's hear it. Look, it's our Fab Four. That's why I got the gift.
Just one more thing, and I forgot to mention Tony. Tony, that song is up.
Yeah, that's- You and you. So you, then you, and that's it. Go ahead, Anna.
My question is, Ryan, when you were producing and directing, Freda did a lot of talking, and I know it was without
You
script.
don't have to say that.
You're the star. How did you get her to speak so well and
I
tell
don't
such
think
good
we have to
stories?
stop.
No, Freda can talk. there's no magic potion to getting Freda to talk. It's just you sit down with her in the living room and then 5 days later you're still there. So it was just a matter of releasing releasing the floodgates, I mean, Freda had never told these stories to most people, and we did go through a lot of these stories multiple times, and there are, you know, we had wonderful editors on this film who condensed it down because we had different versions of Freda's stories, but, you know, Freda made the commitment to making this film. You know, it was a long conversation before we even started this film, and Freda would want to even be sitting in the living room having those conversations. And so once she sat down, we sat from morning till night, day after day after day. And this is coming from someone who is, you know, my uncle was Billy Kinsley, who's in the film. I grew up around Beatles people, but I am not a Beatles history fan. I never sought out to make a Beatles film, and I would never make another Beatles film again. And I was sitting in a room with Freda listening to these stories, and that's what I'm drawn to. I'm not drawn to, you know, the really interesting or sexy things about the Beatles. I'm drawn to a good storyteller, and Freda is a Liverpudlian Irish woman through and through and through, and she's a storyteller. And listening to her stories, and it was painting a mental picture for me, and then in my head I'm thinking, I can bring this to life in a way that no one's ever heard. And so Freda has no trouble talking. I did not have to draw that out of her. Freda will talk. Just try it later.
Recording her, we began calling her One Take Freda, because not only can she talk really well and tell stories really well, she would do them in one take many times. And she'd do it, and we'd sit there and look at each other like, wow, that was really good. You know? So then we'd say, okay, next story, and go on to the next one. But what also was very important about this film, and we had to convince Freda about this, her stories were all new. Beatle fans had never heard any of these stories before because she'd never talked to anyone about it. And since I was a huge Beatles fan and saw them down the Civic Center, September 13th, 1964, $3.75. I just felt it was important for Beatles history, not only for Freda's family, but also for Beatle fans and Beatles history, to document these stories before her memory box went, or before she, not that it ever will, but just, I was just mesmerized by these stories, and it took several years to convince her that she wasn't just admin, as she called herself. She was like really the heart of the whole thing for Beatles fans, for the Beatles families, and for the Beatles themselves. She made that whole little engine hum, and I knew about her when I was living over on Georgetown Road, down the street from Joe Laverde, and I used to get the Beatles monthlies for 50 cents, save up, get them, and Freda used to write in that, so every Beatles fan knew who Freda was and wanted to be her. And so when she came and sat in my living room for the first time and started telling me stories, I just couldn't believe it. But she just has charmed people now for the past 3 Years all over the world, and it's just a real testament to the way she's conducted her life.
How did Kathy and Freda meet?
How did Kathy and Freda eat?
Beatles monthly. My name ended up, you know, all those letters you saw on the floor in the Beatles office? Mine was one of those. She managed to pick my letter, got my name on the list in the Beatles monthly, and actually Robbie Malloy, now this is 50 years ago, and we're now in a 4-generation friendship with this family, picked my name, and we started writing and eventually started going back and forth, and I met his sister, Sandra, worked for Freda at the Beatles fan club in Liverpool. So, what are the odds of that?
Really?
And
Amazing.
yeah, so through them over the years of going back and forth to Liverpool, I met Freda because she was part of that circle of friends. And I've been warned, whatever you do not bring up the Beatles around Freda. And I said, really, why? And they said, because she will just cut you off, she will like lanky would block you out, and she'll never talk to you again. I'm like, whoa, okay. So for 8 or 10 years, whatever it was, hanging around Freda, and I'm like dying, but I never asked her a question about the Beatles. This is true. Until we went to a family wedding on a little island in the Mediterranean called Ibiza. Ibiza is how Americans would say it. And we were sitting there having some wine, and then having some more wine, and having some more wine.
I never drink wine, so I was straight.
Freda started talking about the Beatles. Ordered another bottle of wine straight away. I don't remember half of what she said, but that was when the ice broke. And it all led to this. So it was, to me,
It was Baltimore that done it. Play Baltimore.
I ended up in her house on holiday. And she said, I know a few Beatle fans. Oh, do you? And she went, they really like to talk to you, and I forget it. And then she said, no, I'll just invite them to my house. I thought, I don't want to do this. I really don't want to do this. And I went, oh, come on, Kathy. And she said, no, they're really nice, and they're our age, and they're not lunatics, and just nice. And that was the night. I said, oh, okay, well, I'll give them 3/4 of an hour to an hour, and then I'm out of here. 4 hours, Lisa.
So that's how it started. It actually started in Baltimore.
Yeah. Haynesville.
Yes, ma'am. We'll give you the last word.
I actually have a question for Jess and Ryan. You guys weren't even born during the 60s. So everything you knew about the Beatles was what older people told you, or when you listened to their music. But yet you get the up close and personal with the person that was the closest to them. And I'm just wondering from each of you, what was your biggest takeaway from that? Like based on what you knew just from your aunt and your parents, and then you get Freda. So I'm wondering what that meant to you and what was your biggest insight?
I mean, I think we both grew up loving the Beatles, maybe not to the extent that would have been possible had we been born in that era, but my biggest takeaway is because we're from a different generation, basically we as fans would never have the connection that Beatles fans had to the Beatles because of Freda. Like, to me, that was something into Ryan that really struck us. Like, you could write a letter and someone was actually going to read it and go over to them and say, what did you have for breakfast today? Okay, and write it down and send it back to you. I just don't, like, that doesn't happen anymore. To us, that was like an amazing connection, and it was like an unsung hero of that connection. Like, she wasn't, nobody knew, like, no one was giving her the credit that she was due for doing that, for making these fans feel this connection with their artists, with the people that they loved. They got letters back from them. She would not let a letter, sit unreplied to. And I think that's something we just didn't have, we don't have, and I don't think will ever really happen again. And that was something that really struck us, and we are sad we didn't get to experience that in the way that some of you might have, but we did get to experience it in this way, and we're really grateful for that.
I think just adding on to what Jeff said, that my biggest takeaway, not even from making this film, but of this experience, and I haven't seen Freda in a while, this film came out 2 years ago, we were traveling together a lot, and now we see each other less and less, but when we get to see each other, and we were sitting in the back having drinks, not watching the film, but you could hear certain parts of the film, and it comes back into your consciousness, and the main thing that comes back into my consciousness is a takeaway from Freda herself and not the film, is privacy. And I think the prime example of that, or one of the prime examples, is that when that beginning and ending footage where we're in Freda's office now, where she works for a lawyer, and she's the secretary for him, we had to film that on the weekends when no one was there because no one there knew that Freda was the Beatles' secretary. And now they all do, and I don't know what that's like for her. But at the time, she was hiding this from everyone. And I think I mentioned earlier that I'm making a film about Serena Williams, and that is the polar opposite of a Freda Kelly, right? That is someone who lives in the limelight and the social media and the modern world in a way that is, to me, miserable. You know, I love following Serena, but the way that Freda held that at bay, and it was her own choosing, and it is still her own choosing, I think is very rare. And you know, that's not to say that, you know, I think that's a bad thing, what people from our generation do with their celebrity, but it's something that I've learned as a filmmaker and a filmmaker following other subjects from Freda, is that privacy can be a good thing, but that at some point sharing your story doesn't mean that your privacy has to be spoiled, that people can take from that what they may, but that you can still have your own privacy like Freda does to this day.
Freda, how about a nice hand to bring